This chapter says there are vicious circles in this climate system, Earth system. We have already talked about Ice-Albedo feedback. If you haven't listened to the previous podcasts on that, then essentially Ice-Albedo feedback is where either the orbital changes or some other process begins to build glaciers or melt the glaciers and kicks off feedbacks in the system. How does it work? If glaciers begin to build, then there is more and more ice cover. Remember, ice has very high albedo, so a lot of the sunlight gets reflected, a lot more gets reflected, which means it gets colder, so the glacier can grow more. So more and more of the region is covered with high albedo ice, so you keep on going till the cycle is broken, either because the orbital cycle changes or something else happens. Or in the other direction, like we are now doing, keep increasing the greenhouse gases. Planet keeps more of the thermal energy, prevents it from going to space, so you begin to melt the glaciers as we are doing now over Greenland and Antarctica. So you reduce the albedo, which means the Earth is keeping more of the thermal energy now. It gets warmer, more glaciers melt, and you keep going till lots of the glaciers melt and something else prevents the cycle from completely wiping out the glaciers. And remember, there have been times in the past, like when the dinosaurs were running around, there were no glaciers, there was no sea ice in the Arctic, there were forests in the Arctic Circle. Dinosaurs were going all the way into the Arctic Circle to eat their vegetarian diet and so on. And there is another feedback that can happen with the permafrost. Remember, this is the frozen soil, which freezes and keeps a lot of the methane because there is organic matter in it. And if you do global warming like now we are doing, permafrost begins to melt, it releases the methane and carbon dioxide, and you hasten the warming, you increase the warming, more permafrost can thaw or melt, and feedback can go on. The book calls it vicious circle, just to give you a sense of how the cycle is not broken when you have these kind of feedbacks, and some external trigger is often needed to break the cycle. And this has happened throughout Earth's history with the ice ages and the periods without ice age, or far fewer glaciers when it's warm and so on. So we'll come back and look at a few more examples of the vicious circles in the Earth system. Okay.